Hey everyone, my name is Anetta and I am here with Danielle Lunamari. She is an empowerment life coach and a hypnotherapist, and I'm super excited to be talking about like the emotional triggers and from unhealthy relationships that you may experience after you leave an unhealthy relationship and ways that we can combat and overcome them. So I'm super happy to have you here, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Annette. I'm really grateful to be here too.
Awesome. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I moved to Arizona almost 20 years ago. And it's been a wonderful, yet crazy kind of whirlwind experience, to say the least. I was married for quite a while, and just last year I actually got divorced. Was in a unhealthy relationship. And throughout that experience, I was kind of going through almost like a spiritual awakening type situation where I was really questioning everything from, like, what's my purpose here? What am I doing? Am I happy? Am I not happy? And, lots of feelings of guilt, occurred just from having those thoughts. And a series of events kind of propelled me down a new path, a new career path as well, where I decided to start my own business because it's more in alignment with what I want to do. And yeah, just it's been crazy. It's been a wonderful, crazy, chaotic, enlightening experience, kind of all mixed into one. So I'm very grateful to be here today and to help your audience hopefully work through some emotional triggers they might be experiencing.
Yeah, wow. That's a really powerful story. It shows that like you really did the work to heal and to grow and to overcome through that because getting married is one thing, but also that's like a promise that you're making to somebody and it's I don't know about you, but I don't like to break my promises. So I think that's a huge step to be able to step out and to actually make the next move.
Yeah, it was hard because, when you're an empathic person, there's this one part of you that just naturally wants to help people and see other people thrive and grow. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me was around, I kind of call it like empowerment over enablement, which I didn't really understand at the time how very important it is to make sure that whether it's your partner, your child, your employee, whoever it is, that you're not enabling a behavior, that if you're trying to help them, you're actually empowering them to find their own solutions while still being supportive, but not trying to solve their problems for them. And that was a trap. I mean, I put myself in it, so I'm the only one to blame, but something I fell in that in the moment I couldn't really see at the time. But, in hindsight, looking back at it, I kind of still have a little bit of guilt around the fact that I wish I was more supportive instead of trying to go into like fixer mode because that doesn't help anybody.
Wow, that's so powerful. I like how you said that because a little background on me, I was married once upon a time, and when I was 21, actually,
Oh,
and
wow.
at 23, I decided to file for divorce because it's like I felt like I always needed to be the fixer. I always
Mm.
felt like, how can I fix the situation instead of supporting? So I really like how you said that, and I think it's just like do you think it could be past traumas of us not getting like the help from in the past, maybe from childhood or maybe our first relationship, not getting that help? So we want to go back and help others. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I've always been someone who's been really introspective. I mean, I was a weird kid. I was oddly interested in like very advanced things at a young age. I remember grabbing my mom's like medical book, right? When she would like look up if we were sick, me and my brother. And I would just remember sitting like in my like living room, like, just reading it. I'm like 7 or 8. So like I don't even know what I'm reading, but like it made sense in a weird way. And I became so interested in that. So I think from a young age, I've always wanted to help people. I started in my earlier career in my 20s, teaching. I worked with kids with autism. So I've always been, inclined to kind of help people. My mom was a teacher too. So I think that that definitely influenced it a lot. And I remember being 16 and like reading this book called like The Codependency Trap, like trying to figure myself out and why am I so codependent in relationships and like what's going on with me. So I think, part of it was, just kind of having the inclination to want to help people. And then the other part is like trying to figure myself out. And then at one point, I think what happens when you're trying to be a fixer is there's an element of you that knows you need some element of fixing, but then there's like a part of you that feels like afraid to go there. So then you end up kind of projecting that onto others, maybe, maybe not, but maybe. And as a result, then you end up trying to fix them without actually kind of looking within and saying, okay, what's within me that I need to maybe work on? So I think there was a little bit of that going on too.
Wow, it's crazy because I mean, we didn't know each other growing up and we weren't like friends growing up, but I
No.
can totally relate. It's crazy because I love my parents. Like I feel like they did everything that they could. Like they came from another country. They came from like Poland to the States and they did everything that they could. But at the same time, I feel like the communication or like the emotional part wasn't there. So
Mhm.
like grow when I got older, like I wanted to fill that void by putting it into other people.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. It's crazy. And the thing that I try to tell, everyone I work with, all my clients too, like if they've had, whether their childhood was traumatic or whether it wasn't, is to just also, give some grace and forgiveness because parents, they only can do the best they can with the tools, resources, and mindset that they have in that time period, right? So, no parent is intentionally trying to do something, to you to make you into a certain way. It's just their own experience, their own knowledge, right? Like, what do they have at that point in time? And so many factors influence that too. And I think that's, super important to, recognize as well. And then as a result, you can either kind of stay stuck, right? Saying, okay, well, I'm a victim of XYZ, or you can acknowledge that because it is very important to acknowledge what you've been through. To shove it under the rug is certainly not the right thing to do because it'll just come creeping back up later. But to acknowledge, these things, yes, they happened, process the emotions, but not to stay stuck in the cycle of A, repeating them, or B, just kind of getting stuck on them and being in that like, oh, woe is me kind of, space. And I mean, I know I fell into that mindset for quite a while. And I don't blame myself for it because at that time, that was the best I could do. You can only do the best with what you have at that time. That's why I'm super, passionate about personal improvement and personal development because I think as long as you're growing, you're living life fully. If you start stagnating, that's when problems start coming up, and that's when you start to either create your own problems because you're bored, right? Or things are just not interesting, or you might end up, unconsciously starting problems in other people's lives too that you don't even know you're doing.
That's so true. That's so true. So, where along in your journey did you start to work on like personal development and what tools and resources have helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, there's been bits and parts of my life where I like really kind of dove in, and then there was other parts where I kind of almost got disconnected from it, in some sense. The first time I can really think of is probably when I was about 16 reading that book. And just trying to figure myself out. I was always interested in psychology courses. I went to college and all my coursework was psychology, sociology, humanities, anything to like learn about people and like why they are the way they are. So I was always interested in that. And then I think at some points I kind of almost deflected away from that and then focused on, okay, well, what's everyone else doing? What's everyone else's issues and not really looking at my own. And then it was probably when I was close to the end of college where I started doing a lot more kind of inner work and focus. And I got really into just the practice of Taoism, actually. And it's very, about energy and balance and yin and yang. It's just a way of living, do unto others what you would want done to you, nothing crazy, but just really like flowing with life and flowing with the cycles of life instead of trying to resist. And then, so I was really into that for a while. And then I kind of fell off again and then kind of went back in. And then it was in 2021 when I started really questioning things. I felt like I was sleepwalking through life. Every day was just like, okay, check the box. Did I do all these things? Did I make everyone else happy? Now, do I have time to make myself happy? Like, do I have the 5 minutes at the end of the day? And then I was like, this can't be what life's about. There's got to be more. This is not okay. And I got to the point where I was really just questioning, like, what am I here for? Like, yes, I have a job, and I was married at the time. There was issues though going on, and I started doing a lot of kind of introspection at that point, and started diving into quantum physics. I got really interested in that and went down that rabbit hole, and that led me down many more rabbit holes. And then I looked into energy healing. I've never had energy healing done to me, so I tried that for the first time. And then I found myself needing to not, like, I wanted to not be needed by anyone. So I was taking these solo trips up to northern Arizona, Strawberry, Arizona to be specific. And I was staying in this little tiny cottage, and I would stay there for, 2 days at a time. And then over time, over the years, the duration and frequency of those trips increased a lot. And it was during that time where I really got to kind of know myself. Like, okay, like, who am I? Like, what do I like to do on my own? Like, what makes me happy? Because I really couldn't answer that question before. And I think without that clarity, it was really hard to really get where you're going. If you can't see, it's like a windshield. If you've got bug guts all over your windshield, like, you don't know where you're going. You can't see in front of you. So if you don't have that clarity, you can't take that next step. So for me, it was around, really practicing self-love and, acknowledging, these things, have happened. You did the best you could, radical self-acceptance. And then that led me down a path of, seeing a life coach myself. And I was just so fascinated by everything she was saying. And she's like, you should get trained in this. And I'm like, what? Okay. And I just went all in, and I got trained in neuro-linguistic programming coaching, timeline therapy, Reiki, crystal healing, all these different hypnotherapy, all these modalities that basically helped me in my journey. I got trained in because they were fast, life-changing, and just made such a profound impact on the way I saw life. And it made me realize how many beliefs I had about myself and just the world in general that were very skewed. So that's a very long answer to a short question, but that's a little tidbit there.
No, I love all of that because it's like, I feel like we don't usually like pick up like a self-help book or like a podcast or an audio until like we realize that we need change ourselves. And like, I like how you said that, like, you felt like you were sleepwalking through life because when I was in my unhealthy relationship slash marriage, like, I felt like I was sleepwalking through life as well. But I didn't feel like I had anybody to relate with because I
Yeah.
felt like it was just me. Like, am I just going crazy, going in circle after circle? So I didn't know what was happening. And do you feel like you felt like you were sleepwalking through life because of the unhealthy relationship, or was it just other factors?
I've never been asked that before. That is such a great question. I think there's parts of my life where I think most of my life, yes, definitely. I think in general. And then I remember there was one part when I moved to Arizona where I kind of got like lit up inside for like the first time, like almost like, hey, there's a life outside of New Jersey, right? And here it is in Arizona. And I met great people, and I became this like spontaneous person. And I was like, who am I? Like, this is so cool. So, for that period of time, I wasn't sleepwalking through that period. But then I went through guess you could call it a breakup. Someone who I was very fond of, and we were never really official, and then we finally were official, and then he kind of pulled the rug under me, and that kind of crushed me for a really long time, to be honest. I haven't really talked about this publicly to anyone, but it crushed me. And then I think I started sleepwalking again, and it was just like, okay, like, this is what it is, and there's so many years of my life where I don't know if it's just I don't have a great memory or what, but like, yeah, there's like tidbits of things I can remember, but through that period of like sleepwalking, I think you're so like unconscious almost, where you're not grounded in the moment. You're not in a state of gratitude. You're just literally like rinsing and repeating and just trying to survive and get through the day. And then I think after a while that just became the norm for me. And then I think it got a lot worse, towards the end of to the end of my marriage. And then I think I woke up a lot in 2021. And then, you feel a lot of inner conflict because you're like waking up, you're evolving, and you're like, it's like you opened your eyes and took your first breath, like for the first time. And you're like, oh my gosh, like what's happening around me? It's like you were sleepwalking or in a coma, and then you just wake up and you're just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So kind of from that moment forward, after doing, I mean, I have like hundreds of journals. Like I would go through like a journal a week. I would just write so much. I've documented every feeling, every moment. And I'll go back and I'll read through them and I'll see like the same kind of cycles repeating until I actually did that inner work. It didn't matter whether or not I knew what I should do or not. It was like, yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do, but like there was that thing in me that wasn't making me actually do it. Whether it's like, I call it like procrastinating your own happiness, or like living in this like purgatory of indecision where you're like half in, one world, half in the other world, but you haven't really decided, do I want to stay in this world or do I want to move on in my life and do something different? So that was really hard for me for a while.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And you were saying earlier that it's like you haven't like really shared about like the one breakup that like crushed you, but like it doesn't matter like how long it was or who it was with. I feel like if you get emotionally invested, it will crush you. And it's like whether you
Oh
have a
yeah.
crush on somebody and like you've been casually seeing each other, hoping it goes further, and then you like realize like, oh, like this is just actually a game. Like, okay, it's fine. Like, I'll just pick you. I feel like us as women specifically, like we just want to pick ourselves up and take that love and pour it into somebody else.
Yes.
And
You couldn't have said it better.
yeah, like it's the nurture in us. But then also, if we go and find somebody who we want to give it to, they might not be the ones that deserve it because they could be the ones that take advantage, or they could be the ones that just want to take and take and take. And that's part of how I got into an unhealthy relationship as well. Wow.
Yeah. It's
What?
crazy. I think too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's interesting because I don't think about that as much anymore, right? That
Mhm.
situation. And, I like to always try to look at, everything, no matter how terrible it is. And in the moment, you can't do this. So this is not a tip for someone who's like in the thick of it. But like after you're, moving towards the other side of things, I think it's really important to kind of go back and say, okay, like what was there for me to have learned about myself in this situation? So not like, oh, what did I do wrong? But like, what did this situation or this experience bring to light for me, right? So, even though that was a crushing situation, I mean, I was 21, right? And this
Yeah.
was almost 20 years ago. So it's a long time ago, but, it definitely affected me for a long time. But, when I look back, I would have to say to myself, okay, had I not met this person, I would have never ended up in Arizona. That was number one because I kind of met him when I was visiting and he was like the factor that made me kind of want to move out here. My parents were already here and it was like the last nudge. So my mom was thrilled. She was like, "Oh my God. Okay, fine. Like what I'll drive you wherever you want to go. Like that's okay." Like she was so happy that I wanted to move here. And when she listens to this, she's going to laugh. But so I look at that and I say, okay, well, had this situation not have happened, I wouldn't have ever ended up here, which means who knows, right? I would have stayed stagnant in New Jersey because I definitely felt stagnant there, which was, of course, another factor why I decided to move to Arizona. But at the same time, too, there was like this element of me, this like spontaneous part where I was just so open to trying new things. And that was not a paradigm or anything I was even used to doing before. So I have to look at that situation and say, while yes, it was heartbreaking in the moment and, affected me in different ways, but when you kind of trace the breadcrumbs back to like where those experiences started and like where you're at now, you can say to yourself, like, had this not happened, then I wouldn't have been here in this space. And, you can see a lot of positive in that. You can kind of chain all the events that have happened, all the good ones. Sure, there's going to be bad ones. There always will be. But like some of the most profound, wonderful moments, had these things not have happened, I wouldn't have been here. Like, had I not gotten divorced, I don't know that I would have, quit my corporate job and started my own business. And like never, I can't even imagine. I would have been doing the same thing probably and still feeling unfulfilled. So there's always something you to see. I know people say like the silver lining or whatever, but I like to look at it more like, within yourself, like what did I learn about me and my own growth versus just, looking at a circumstance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's like I completely agree, and you said it so well, like beautifully said. Like so many times it's like when we go through challenges and obstacles, we need to, us as humans, see that they're actually working for our favor. Because you don't, when you want something, it doesn't get handed to you on a gold platter. 9 times out of
Right.
10, it comes to you in the forms of challenges and obstacles. And us as humans need to realize, like, this is my opportunity to grow. Like, I'm not a runner. I probably won't be, but if I wanted to start being a runner, like, I would probably start running like a mile a day. And it wouldn't be easy at first, but if it would get me to my goal, then eventually those challenges and obstacles that would come with it would get me to where what I want. And I think a lot of times like we need to see that like through relationships as well, whether it's personal, friends, family, whatever. So I love how you said that. I have a question for you. So
Sure.
when what are like some red flags that like you saw in your unhealthy relationship, and how long did it take you to see them? Like, did you see them
Ooh.
right away, or did you just kind of let them slide?
Oh God. Yeah. So I have trust tattooed on my left wrist for a reason right here
Yes,
because
trust the process, trust the plan.
do you really? Of course you do, right? All these interesting synchronicities with us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love it. So we just learning more things as we go on and talk to each other. It's great. So yeah. So I mean there was red flags from like date one that I chose to not see, or no, I saw them, but I chose to not acknowledge. And then they just kept coming and they kept coming. I'm like, no, 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 no. And I was like doing this like internal justification of everything. Just very kind of just personality wise. Like there's someone who you can tell is like trying to just be confident because they're nervous, and there's someone who's trying to be like overly confident in like almost like an aggressive way. Like those are two paradigms that I would look at. People might assign the word confidence to that, but then there's like two very distinctive factors. And there's one where you can kind of feel someone's underlying nervousness if they're trying to like be cool or confident. And then there's someone else where it's really aggressive. So like that was from, date one. And then there was a situation, it was, oh gosh, like we moved in really quickly, which was not a good idea. But I mean like not even a month and a half after we met each other. So that was another, thing that I learned that it's probably not a good idea to do. But we were at like a group, friend event or something with a group of my colleagues. And he was like offending people, like just literally offending people, saying a lot of offensive things. And I didn't hear it, but then like one of my friends pulled me aside and was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" They're like, "With this guy." And I'm like, I live with him now. Like, and like in my heart, like my heart sunk because I was like, I live with him. Like, I just uprooted my everything and like have invested in this. So in my eyes, like that's all I could, say to myself. Like in my head, I couldn't see like, okay, well, you have options. There's things that you can do. You don't have to stay with this person. But for me, it was like, well, what am I going to do now? And like all of the what ifs started, just making me really nervous. Like, well, okay, well, where do I go and how do I do that? And I've changed this and that. And like, I let those fears completely blind me to not seeing things. And then, I mean, there's countless red flags as things went on. There was a lot of verbal manipulation, a lot of emotional abuse. There was counts of physical abuse. That's something that I've never said out loud either, which makes me even nervous just saying it now. But, yeah, I mean, there's a handful of people in my life that know that, so that's kind of a big deal. So, whew, scary. But Yeah, and there's part of you, you see someone who's hurting, you know that they've got their own journey or things that they need to work on, so that part of you empathizes with them. And then when they make some attempts to rectify those things, you want to support that, which I did. And that's one of the reasons why I think I stayed in the relationship as long as I did, was because of that. Because you see that in someone and like, okay, all right, they're making the steps, or they're at least taking the action, and then then there's no follow through maybe, or they fall off the wagon and then something repeats again. And then you're just like, you say to yourself, okay, well, how many times is this going to have to happen? And then I'd find myself Googling things that were happening with us in the relationship and trying to justify them. Like, oh, this won't happen again, or that won't happen again, and I couldn't find anything on Google to support it, but I just try to make myself feel better, to be honest. But, trusting your gut and your intuition and being able to filter fear out is very hard, but very important, I think, because your fears will prevent you from seeing what's really there, and your intuition will always be guiding you. I always say, like, I had a poor relationship with my intuition. I didn't. I had a great relationship with my intuition. I chose not to listen to it. And then I would say, well, that's probably just my anxious mind saying this or that. Oh, that's probably me just worrying, being a worry war. And then I would literally justify my intuitive feelings, which was a problem. So I would suggest listening to it and then just sitting with it and processing it. Doesn't mean you have to make a decision right away, but like, I'm a big fan of like, open a journal, like write a question out and just let the pen flow. Don't even think about it. I don't care if it's chicken scratch, if it makes no sense, if it's bullet points, symbols you draw, whatever it is, just kind of like zone out and like let it flow out and see what happens. And then just sit with it. You don't have to make a decision. I think for me, it was like I felt like I had to act on everything like right away. Okay, well, if this comes to light, then I have to do this, without taking some time to just like process it and just sit with it for a little bit.
Wow, that was so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
I
course.
feel like, well, at first, in the beginning, I felt like you were just telling my story because, like, I feel like we have such similar stories, and it's crazy because, like, I can relate with the overly confident. Oh, my Lanta, like, it's just never ending with the overconfidence. But we also, when we started dating, after a month and a half, 2 months, we were living together. And I
Oh
feel
my
like
God.
all my same thing. My friends, my family were kind of like looking at me. They're like, Anetta, like, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we're good, don't worry about it. Because, like, also, because we've taken that step to live together, the female, like, we want to be able to figure it out and to prove everybody wrong that we can figure it out and make ends meet. But I feel like from being in like an unhealthy relationship like that, that is seems like it's a tactic for them to try to like close you in. Because if you live together, then they have more like room for manipulation or for gaslighting and love bombing and things like that. And it can be such, it doesn't matter how long you live together or you've been together, 1 month, 2 month, 3 years, it can get dark really fast. Um, wow, I really resonate with that. And I like how you said that to just journal it out because it doesn't matter what you're writing, chicken scratch, bullet points, or actual thoughts, because it's actually better to go and talk to just anybody. Obviously, you want to
Yeah.
go talk to people that you trust, but you don't want to go to just anybody because you don't know what they're going to think. They're going to be
Hmm.
worried about you. You don't want your friends and family to be worried about you as well. So that was so powerful. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, just when I think about it, it took me years even to like tell my best friend. And actually, I didn't even willingly tell her about one of the physical incidents. A friend witnessed it and told her, and then she approached me about it. But I felt like I had to, like, you feel like you have to go into protector mode. Like you have to protect your husband or whatever it is. You have to protect your relationship and all these things. And you almost go in like defensive mode then as a result, because you're like, oh, well, it was just, this was the situation. And then like you even make things up in your head, and then you're asking yourself, well, did that really happen or did not really happen? Am I making that up? And I think too, like it can be really hard. Like even if you have like the most neutral, objective friend in the world, like they're your friend, they love you, and like there's a stake in it for them. So like for me, what I think really helped me kind of get to the other side of it was when I was seeing life coach. She like, cause she would ask me a lot of very neutral questions. Like she doesn't know that person. She doesn't know anything about them. Right. And she was able to, get me to think about things in a little bit of a different way, but like she didn't have an opinion either way. Like it was, didn't matter whether we stayed together or not. She was just helping me kind of see the things that I couldn't see. And to have someone to kind of talk through, whoever it is, whether it's a therapist or a life coach or whoever it is, to have that neutral party to be there to kind of help you at least talk through things or at least think through things. And if they're good, like they ask you a lot of questions and then help you kind of come to your own conclusions. And that's the approach I use myself, because there's nothing worse than, having someone just tell you what to do. Like you want to be the one to feel empowered enough to make your own decisions. But like you can only analyze so much about yourself no matter how many books you read. Like there's always going to be blind spots, and you need someone supportive to kind of help you see those blind spots. So, I mean, for me, it was just like this silent journaling. Like I would joke, I had two journals. I had like a physical paper journal, many of them. And then I have like my secret app on my phone that's like password protected, where like nobody will ever figure it out. So like, even if I die, like no one can find it, because it's got like dark thoughts, dark stuff in there. And that's like my, nobody sees that stuff, So like there's always you can always get it out. And I would say, whether or not you've found someone to talk through something with or not, just get it out of your head, because otherwise it's going to go on a loop and it's going to consume your energy, your mind. And, but just kind of getting it out on paper and just letting the words flow, and then coming back to it at a later point to really think about, okay, what do I want to do with this situation when the emotions are not as heightened? Because in the moment, right, if you're like in a high emotional situation, you're not going to make the best decisions. Like that's just a fact. It's not like anything, profound. Like that's just the truth. Like you'll make an impulsive decision, or you might choose to, lash out or whatever. So like putting distance, whether that's between your own thoughts and yourself or between you and the person, will really go a long way.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I feel like it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole, and if you don't take control of your thoughts, because like you mentioned, it's so easy to lose track in the blind spots. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, I know they said this, but they didn't mean it. And psychological like abuse is just as equal to physical abuse, like in any way, because I feel
Yeah.
like physical abuse is one thing, but also psychological abuse is something that sticks with you, and it can linger. Whether they're
Mm-hmm.
telling you or always criticizing you how you look, you walk, how you talk, who you hang out with, it's always that lingering thought. So, like, I mean, for example, for me, like, I felt like I had a lot of psychological abuse. I think we talked about this the other day when we
Yeah.
chatted, but it was just even hard to accept a compliment. It's just like, oh, like after the relationship, someone's like, oh, you look good today. I'm like, who? Where? I want to see. Like, I was not used to that as well. So it's very important to like get outside help, whether it's some kind of community that you have or a trusted
Mm-hmm.
friend or a family member, because us naturally in that relationship, we're going to be attracted to the blind spots and we're not going to
Yeah.
want to see it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Psychological abuse is powerful, and it makes you question everything about yourself. It chips away at you, and then you don't even know who you are at the end. You're like, who? I'm just this crumble of nothing. Like who? I'm like a shell of a person. That's what I would feel like for the longest time.
Absolutely. And it's like you just feel like scared or embarrassed to go out in public and associate with people, because it's like you feel like you're constantly being judged.
Yeah.
And wow, it's so powerful. What are like some things that have helped you on your healing journey outside of journaling? Like, do you do yoga? Do you hang out with like have a group of women that you hang out with? I know you mentioned like hypnotherapy a little bit. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, one of like there's so many things. So I'll give you a couple. And then I think I wanted to like also end at the end with a cool exercise for your listeners that we can like do together here, which is really cool and really powerful. So I'll go with the other stuff first. So for me, I think one of the biggest things was working with an NLP life coach specifically, because it's what neurolinguistic programming is it's a way of using language and communication to basically help like access your subconscious mind essentially, and to help influence and change behavior. So it's a very different approach, but I mean it is profound, it is powerful. I mean, all of like the Tony Robbins of the world and all these people, they're all trained in that stuff too. They just don't really talk about it, but it's so cool because it's so profound and so powerful. So working with her, and then also when I was getting trained, before you get trained, you have to go through, the procedures yourself. So timeline therapy for me was huge. Basically, what that is where you work through the five main emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt first. And what's lovely about it is that you're not reliving emotional trauma over and over again. You're accessing it from a dissociated state. When I say dissociated, I don't mean in like a scary, weird way. It just means like a bird's eye view. Like you're looking down on an experience. You're not in it, seeing through your own eyes. So there's a lot of visualization, some hypnotherapy involved. And your goal is to get the positive learnings from the experience. So for me, when I did anger, mine was feel the feelings. And I still get goosebumps every time I say that, because that breakthrough is insane. It was like 30 minutes, first of all, which was crazy. It's like worked so fast. It was 30 minutes. I remember like just tearing, not out of sadness, but out of like release. And I was like, why am I even tearing? Like, I don't even know what's happening. And I had so many learnings, but feel the feelings was like the big one. And for me, it was because all my feelings, I turned all of them off. All the good ones, all the bad ones, all of them were off, right? So hence sleepwalking, right, through life. And for me, it was like, okay, so you're gonna need to open your heart again, right? Because everything was just closed, and then it's not fun to live life like that. That doesn't feel good. So that was one modality, and I can go on for that about an hour, so I'll be brief with that. And then hypnotherapy as well, right? So same concept, getting into a deeply relaxed state. It's so important that you have a positive rapport and trust the hypnotherapist you're working with, and you'll know, like you either vibe or you don't, right? Because unlike what most people think, hypnotherapy is not mind control. No one can hypnotize you to rob a bank or to not like your favorite food. Like there's all these like things that I hear every time I talk to someone. I'm like, no, it's not like the shows or like the circus act you saw. Like that's not how it works. You can never be hypnotized to do something that is against your own morals, values, or beliefs. So that is the truth. So even if someone comes to me for like, I want to quit smoking, I do like a thorough, like, kind of like question answer process with them first to make sure, is this coming from you, or is it like your wife wants you to quit or your husband wants you to quit? Because if you don't really want that change within, it doesn't matter. I can hypnotize you all day long. You'll never, like, you won't actualize it. So not only does the person need to really truly want and believe that they can do it with support, but the hypnotherapist also has to believe that the person can actualize whatever it is that they're trying to work on. So that was incredibly helpful too. Energy healing, if you've never done like Reiki or chakra balancing, that was crazy for me. I had an amazing experience when I had that done the first time. Like my whole body just felt like I had like a brain massage, and like every part of me just felt like alive again. It was crazy. It was amazing. So I got trained in that too, because I was like, this is so cool. Like I want everyone to feel this. So those are just a couple like kind of, other things. But then yeah, I mean, journaling. I love yoga. I'm a big believer in, I call it like kinesthetic pattern interruption. So if you're in like a negative mindset, or you're just like, you're looping your thoughts and you can't quite get out of like a crappy mood, whatever it is, whether it's relationship based or not, like literally, or like, let's say you're at work and like you're stuck on a problem at work, or you're just frustrated with something. What do most people do? Oh, I got to just push through it. Well, sure, that's fine. But you can take 5 minutes. Just get up, like literally just like get up, stand up, go outside, take a walk. Get up, stand up, do a yoga sequence. Get up, stand up, clap your hands and spin around. I don't care, like anything that's like physical to interrupt the pattern, which is like the brain loop. That's the self-talk, right? We call that in the NLP word like your auditory digital part of your mind, where you're just like, you're looping, the negative thoughts keep coming and you can't quite stop it or get out of that mood. So you need to interrupt it with something that's non-thinking. So using something kinesthetic. So maybe it's dancing, it's going to the gym, really whatever resonates with you. So I'm a big believer in yoga. I love meditation. I always thought when I first started, I'm like, I can't meditate. Oh, and believe me, I struggled at the beginning. Like for me, it was hard, but the thing is you got to start small bits. Like say, okay, I'm going to meditate for 30 seconds for the next 5 days. Anyone can try that. Doesn't mean you have to be successful, and then you bump it up, okay, to a minute. Oh, wow, I did a minute. Actually, I want to do it longer. Now I'm going to do 5 minutes. And you just have to literally like take whatever you think your goal is. Like if your goal is to, I want to meditate an hour a day. Well, don't try to meditate an hour a day from the start. Like especially if you have like doubts about yourself, start so small. And then because you will always exceed it. Like 30 seconds that's not hard to sit for 30 seconds. Who cares if thoughts intrude in your head? It's the fact that you've taken an action, you've taken a step towards trying to do something. And then as you kind of master that 30 seconds, you're like, oh, I can do it a little bit longer. And then you end up like reinforcing yourself by doing it longer. So it's very easy to do, but those are a couple, really cool tools. And then my favorite one, which I would love to do, when we're done to kind of conclude, is it's a really great technique you can do. You can do it anywhere. You can do it as many times as you want, but it works really quickly. And it's basically when you have angst within your body, it's a technique to do something to help relieve that pretty quickly. So, but I'll let you direct when you want to do that.
Wow, I love all of those tips. They're super helpful. Thank you for sharing those. I think it all starts somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. So like when it comes down to like the meditation, like I like how you said just 30 seconds, 30 seconds, and each day you can add 30 more seconds or however long you want to. Like I remember I was talking with this one life coach, and he was saying that some of his clients like don't have like the focus for meditation. So what he encourages them to do is take out a piece of paper and a pen and just for 1 minute set a timer and just draw a bunch of dots. And that helps keeps you
Yeah,
focused on just drawing dots for a whole minute, and then eventually you'll relax into the meditation.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
So it's like there's so many different ways to do it, and it kind of goes back to like what you were saying, like you just have to want it. If you don't want
Hmm.
it better, you don't want to grow and be better in certain areas, then you won't. But if you want to, then the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I love that. So before we wrap up, we'll do the exercise, but where can people find you and how can they support you?
Yeah. So my website's a great place to start. It's zenenergyden.com. So zenenergyden.com. I'm also on Instagram, Evolvement Coaching, TikTok, Evolvement Coaching, Facebook, Evolvement Coaching. So all the same handles pretty much. But I'll send those to you too. So you can, post them wherever. But yeah, I mean, if anyone who's, just ready to stop feeling stuck and wants to have some kind of change, I would love to just have a introductory conversation. Those are totally complimentary. Just let's have a discussion and see if it's a good fit. There's a lot of different programs that I offer, combinations of things. My new favorite one that I'm doing is called Hypno Coaching. So it's kind of like the all-you-can-eat buffet of like all the things that I do, kind of wrapped up in one, where you get your own like personalized blueprint, essentially, where not only will you have like very specific goals. I'm very structured in that way, where I want to make sure like you were working towards something that's measurable. You can see the results. From session one, I want you to have like a great takeaway. So that's amazing. And a lot of people that's probably the thing I do the most now, because it's really just all encompassing and can help, a variety of things, whether it's working through limiting beliefs, if you're having relationship issues, if you're trying to make a career change, you just feel stuck or you feel stagnant. I mean, those are that. And then beyond that, are things that I've helped folks with. So yeah, I mean, the folks I work with are great. Just ambitious people who are like, they just want to evolve. They don't want to stay stuck where they're at.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll go ahead and tag the links in the description below as well. And then whenever you're ready, if you want to do the exercise, we're ready.
Awesome. Okay, great. Okay, so the most important thing before we get started is to remember that we are going to stay with the physical sensation, and I'll explain what that is in a second. The key thing is to stay out of the story, kind of out of the story, out of the mind. You don't want to have the looping thought of what was happening in your brain when we do this exercise. You want to just stay present to the physical sensation. So we'll do it together. So I like to close my eyes when I do this. So if you just close your eyes, and you can bring up into your mind something that is giving you angst, something you're feeling anxious about, upset about, or something that's just kind of plaguing you. And when you think about that thing, there'll be a sensation within one part of your body that you'll feel it. So for me right now, it's like right here, kind of right over the heart area. So just put your hand, one hand or two hands right there. And you want to just stay present to the physical sensation. So for some people, it might be tightness, it might be pressure, it might be pain, whatever it is, just stay present to it. And this might sound counterintuitive, but what you're going to do is you're going to just stay present to the physical feeling, not the story, not the scenario. And you're going to send it love. You're going to think about it like it's a little, like a child or a pet or like this precious little thing within you. And you're going to say, thank you, feeling, for being here. So you're actually thanking your body, you're acknowledging the fact that this experience, this feeling is within you, because all feelings serve a purpose and they're all here to tell you something. So as you stay present with it, you want to kind of follow it. So sometimes it moves to the stomach or the head or a part of your body. You want to kind of just stay present and move with it. And in your head, assign a value to it, okay? 1 being like not intense, 10 being really intense. So for me right now, mine's about an 8. So what we'll do is we'll take about 15 seconds just for the purpose of this podcast of just quiet. And you want to just send it love. You want to thank it for being here. You want to envision it in your mind as though it's this tiny little baby and just keep saying thank you. So we'll start that right now. All right. And as you do this, you can kind of check in with yourself. And sometimes it takes a minute, sometimes it takes, a little bit longer, but you can check in with yourself and you can say, okay, where am I at now? So for me, it's more like a 5, like a 5, 5.5, and mine hasn't moved. But you just stay with it. And basically, your goal is to stay with it until it's at a 2, 1, or a 0. So yeah, that's the exercise. You can
Wow,
do
I love
anywhere
that.
really easily. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that because it's like I feel like also like in the beginning, like when I would start to like meditate or just try to like relax my brain, it's like those intrusive thoughts come in. But if you just start to like fill them with like gratitude just by saying something as
Hmm.
simple as thank you, they just eventually disappear. It's amazing.
Yeah, the key thing to remember is like you want to kind of focus on like the eye of the storm, like the center of it, like where is it most intense in your body? And what we usually do is we try to push it away, right? Like we have a headache, what do? We take an Advil. We try to push it away. And I'm not saying don't take Advil. Advil's great. I use it all the time. But like when we have feelings about things, right? Because we're trying to push through, we're trying to be strong. And like, yes, there's some situations where temporarily that's okay to do that. But we get too stuck in trying to brush things away, push things under the rug, and then those things just bottle up, and then everyone knows if when you bottle things up they will explode, just like teapot on a stove, right? It's going to steam and it's all going to come out at some point. So by acknowledging it and thanking the feeling for being here, so basically you're accepting and embracing it versus trying to shove it away or get rid of it, it has a very profound effect on the physical sensation. And then that thing that was causing you angst, as you continue to do this, will dissipate. And it's quite impressive how long how quickly, I mean, it can work really well for you. So if it's something that comes up frequently, just sit with it a little bit longer. Sit with it and try to get it to that 2, 1, or 0. I mean, most people can do it within a few minutes. Some people might be a little bit longer. And for something really intense, you might need to do it over a couple days. But in any case, it will always bring some peace and a better feeling overall.
Wow, that's incredible. And like we didn't even do that long. We did like 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like already like I can feel the calm and the peace. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing that.
Of course, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I will go ahead and tag where people can find you and support you in the description. And I appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome.